What's up, folks? I'm keeping our guest of honor behind the wall just a little bit before we get running, but it is a Sunday wrap show of a massive Sunday in the world of women's college basketball. UConn went full belt to ass on South Carolina. Texas and LSU gave us an instant classic. And of course, that means we have a lot to get to, a whole heck of a lot of dialogue. And that's where me, Andrew Hobner, shows up, because we got to make sure that we give Shawnee adequate time to really think of the take, think of the way to get going on this. Shawnee is not ducking smoke, at least not yet. The link has been sent, and I know for a fact she will be on this show. So I want to get through all of like the ad reads and all of the corporate jargon before we get going. Shawnee is not ducking, I promise you this. Before we get rolling though, I want to make sure that everybody, of course, is up to date on all of the fun stuff going on with us here at No Cap Space. Of course, the first thing that we want to always start with is our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Of course, roll in with Home Field, no cap 15 to get 15% off your first order. That is, of course, the biggest thing that everybody wants, right? Good merch ahead of the start of March Madness, of course, the start of all of tournament play. And then on top of that, also want to share, folks, No Cap Space has officially entered the 2.0 era. We are in a paid Ball Knower subscriber tier in addition to our free stuff. And so we want everyone to know that if you want to take it a layer deeper into the world of women's basketball, tap in with us further at No Cap Space. It's a good deal. It's $10 a month, or you can do $100 for a year, which is like $830 a month. We're running a 7-day free trial right now. All of the stuff that's normally free is all still free. So all your 5-outs, all your like season beginning hater guides, all of our mock drafts, those things stay free. But then if you pay on top of it, you get a full 3-round mock draft. Richard's got big board. Shawnee has hater guides for everything in particular. And then, of course, we got special subscriber chats, subscriber perks, all of the great things that you want. And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the nasty rumors have been confirmed. Our fearless ethical leader has arrived. Shawnee, floor is yours to start. Welcome to the show. What do we got? I leave it all open to you. I'm gonna mute. I might even get off the stage for you to begin. The mic is up. The mic is out. Shawnee Powell is with us on a belt to ass day in Columbia. But the streak still exists because you were not in attendance for this. And, you know, I'm not saying, but I'm saying. Take the floor.
So let me just say, circumstances did not permit me to be there. I'm moving, so I'm packing, and then I watch my team get packed up. Woo! Oh my God! Like what? So this loss is the one that like disturbs me. Like I am unsettled by this loss because, you know, like UCLA, I've been wondering when we were going to lose. It is what it is. It happens. Things, you know, it is what it is. Texas, we were coming out of a long stretch. We were humbling people left and right. We were playing top teams. You know, it is what it is. We take the L. This one, it was like we got our teeth kicked in and we were just kind of running around bleeding. It wasn't like, you know, it was a David or a Clash of the Titans, or we're trading blows, or it's a game of runs, or we were never close. We were close like the first few minutes before UConn started hitting shots. So this, and to me, it was like, again, we just ran around bleeding, cardio and bleeding. Like it was with our teeth scattered across the court at CLA. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so the thing that disturbs me is it looked like we were trying to play like we usually play. We usually have a world-beating big in the post to get us out of jams, to get us going, to get us started, to take advantage of a mismatch. And it really becomes like, can they be a good passer to pass out of the double, triple when the defense collapse? Can they find the open guards? Can the guards hit shots? Bro, we had Chloe Kitts down there trying to get Aaliyah Boston touches, and I was like,
yeah.
Oh no. So it's like we have to turn into a guard first team and learn how to be like a perimeter in team. And oh boy, I'm concerned because it's like it's been working up until right very now when it didn't. And the part that really concerns me is UConn is a contender. UConn looked like a championship team today. Gino had been reading my tweets. He saw the chatter. He heard like, oh, it's safe in these streets right now. So he unleashed the Page. Page was aggressive. The game was kind of reminiscent of, I think it was her freshman year when she had like 30 and beat us in overtime. Like that game was ugly because neither team was really playing particularly well. She was just being aggressive and did enough to win. And today it was kind of the same thing where she just kept her wheels spinning and just kept going and kept after it and was really like impacting things on both sides of the floor. So it's like, it's nice of the number one pick to finally, live up to that. Like she got the hater guy this morning in her inbox and was like, bet, okay, this is what they're saying. This is what she's saying. Yeah. So now do it again. I dare you to do it in March. Do it in March. I dare you to. But like,
Anna Hidalgo. That's
because your chain is in Notre Dame. I'm sorry. Like,
talk about real hate.
Hello, but we can get to that. But today, today they did everything they needed to do. Azzi, I said this years ago before she got injured, she looked like a player of the year contender. And today she was back to form. And it's like that's really the difference maker on this team. When she's on, she's on. And the part, again, going back to the disturbing nature of this game, every time I look up, Azzi Fudd is in the corner with nobody around her. And I'm like, sisters, hello? Do we need to like put a bell on her so that we know where she's at all times? Because again, why is she in this corner camped out by herself again?
Yeah.
She was in her bag with the pump fake. She's driving, she's shooting, she's doing things that look like old form. So that disturbing. Just gonna call it what it is. Alarming. So I mean, to me, it's not even about learning from this. It's about, are we gonna actually adjust? Because I trust my coach. Should I say this?
It depends. What?
I already said it in the chat, but am I saying it on air? Like this one was man. This one hurt. This one, I ain't like this one.
This is the first one where the invincibility of South Carolina did not feel existent in the way it's been for the past 5 years. I mean, the statistic is crazy. This is the worst home loss in the Dawn Staley era since 2008, 2009. And believe it or not, that also came to UConn. A 39-point loss to UConn when Dawn first came to reevaluate the whole performance. You good?
Bro, we getting throwback butt cuts? Like, god dang.
Uh-huh. But here's the thing. And I guess I'll get on my soapbox here too. I know South Carolina fans in general have gotten to a point where things are in Dawn we trust, right? And Dawn Staley has done so much that she has earned that once, twice, 3 times over.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we start getting into the conversation of GOAT programs and GOAT tier runs and GOAT level coaches, the critiques that we levy are the minutia. It's shit like this. It's it's losing a national title game to Stanford, right? Like it's losing in the Final Four to Iowa. Those are the types of games where the same way we hold that, we've been holding these types of losses on Gino for the past 5 years. Like these are the losses that do go back to you in some type of way, because heavy is the head that wears the crown of goats, right? And I think this was the first game in a long time for me personally where it felt like the questions that I had of what South Carolina is this year and how the rotations and roster has either been constructed or utilized or how minutes have been doled out. For the first time, I asked those questions, and my default wasn't, oh, maybe I'm being a bit of a hater here. Like, maybe I got to do the in Dawn We Trust, right? When Tyler and I got on a couple of months, really, I think it was like a month and a half back when Ashlyn Watkins first got hurt. And we said this takes the ceiling from national title contender to Final Four contender. And we got a lot of responses back. Mariam Dowda.
Hey, all right, chill on my team. Chill on my backups.
I'm just like,
wicked straight.
To like, sometimes asking questions is not pure hate here. And this was one of those games to me where it was so clear Ashlyn Watkins being hurt changes the ceiling of what you can do, because the lack of fear opponents show that front court now on the defensive side of the ball is completely different. They are not afraid to go inside anymore on South Carolina in a way that they were scared shitless to do when Ashlyn Watkins was there and fully healthy. And to me, that I think was the biggest thing today that you saw, in a bona fide superstar in Sarah Strong, man. I mean, he's here already.
The best player on that team, yeah.
Best player on that team, a total lack of fear to be inside. But also what you ended up getting was consistent ball movement, kickouts, driving kicks, that when Watkins is healthy and Watkins is in that lineup, those things come so much harder than they did today. And so it was never this thing of if
I can interject on that point real quick, because another point, we also got like severely out rebounded again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you're watching and it's our guards down there fighting and like trying to get the fingertips on the ball and not quite capable of like really reeling it in. And that's, to me, the biggest part where she's missed, because she's big, bro. Like, she's big, she's athletic, she can box out. And even if it's like she's not getting the rebound, it makes it easier for someone else to get the rebound. Yep. So, when you have Raven Johnson, bless her heart, down there battling the bigs, this is kind of what you get. And it's like, it's not like a fault of her own. It's just like, this is the nature of what's going on. Sorry. Yeah. I had to add that.
No, and to tack on to what you just said, like it adds to the fact that there is, when you lose that player, like when you lose that type of athletic rim protector, rim running presence, you also lose a little bit of the edge. Like you lose a little bit of the dog. And someone I think was very unnerving to a lot of South Carolina fans today was it didn't feel like there was a player on the floor that was willing to get in somebody else's ass and be like, yo, wake up. Like what is happening here? Everybody seemed a little shell shocked. And I understand that when you have, a 70 something game home winning streak, the way South Carolina did, eventually the streak ends, right? Like you're bound to one in CLA. And with that in mind, I'm sure that like the consistent pressure to keep winning, there is a degree of relief that comes from that. in the same respect, championship level rosters and championship contenders, there are people on that roster that stop you from those things happening. And it's pretty clear to me that last year, Camila Cardoso was one of those players. And I genuinely wonder whether or not Ashlyn Watkins is the type of vocal presence that's able to do that. You are losing a player who, just by the nature of how she plays, you have lost one of your leads on the floor, one of your dogs on the floor in that way. And then to top that off, again, to go back to the point of, for the first time really ever, sitting there and thinking like there might actually be some reasonable questioning of how Dawn Staley is, trotting out these kids. I think lineup changes are in order here. I mean, this feels like the moment. I understand that there is a seniority component. I understand that there is an idea here of you need players that know the system, work the system, that do their jobs, that don't do, they don't make stupid plays, they don't turn the ball over. But at a certain point, I mean, you have two of the best players in the country coming off your bench. And I don't know many other places and many other schools at all that are doing it that way and still managing to win. Because if you look at the top teams this year, they let their dogs hunt, like, for all that you want to levy against SC, or USC for that matter, like we just watched Juju Watkins do what she did this past week, right? Like UCLA's team, their whole offensive strategy is get the goddamn ball inside to Lauren Betts, the best big in the country. Notre Dame's is we run through our guards, the best 3-guard tandem in America. If AZ's hot, you get the ball to AZ. Like, all of the top teams have stars that they lean on. And I think the thing that worries me about this particular team is the system seems to be reliant on one or two dominant bigs, and it's always been that way, right? Asia, Camilla, and the benefit of Dawn's teams that I think is really under discussed is there's always been two at one time. So it's like Coach Asia, then you have this one kind of funky year in 2018-19 where they don't have that. And what happens? They lose in the Sweet 16 to Baylor. But then you get the freshies. And then you have Olivia Boston. Then you get AB and Camilla. Then you get Camilla Ashland. And it feels like what this year was supposed to be was Ashlyn Joyce. And then we bridge the gap into Joyce and whoever comes after her. But without that, we don't have that this year. And so you can't rely on system this year if you want to win a national championship in that way. And again, these are GOAT talks. GOAT talks are this is what the expectation is that we have for you. Because I can already kind of picture the response to what I'm saying here is like, what, you expect them to win a national championship every year? If you're a GOATed program, that is what we feel for you. Like, that is the expectation we have for you. We do not have an expectation that UConn runs you off your floor in your own barn. Like, that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So I don't know. I mean, do you think I'm off base here in lineup changes being needed? It just, I can't justify Malaysia Fulwiley coming off the bench and Joyce coming off the bench. Like, you saw that block that Malaysia had that got.
Oh, that was. I left here with something.
You need people that do stuff like that. You need, like, Michaela Williams. Like, you need people that know when to get a bucket at the right time to inject life into people. And I don't see a starter on this South Carolina team that has that type of intrinsic, inherent mentality of, like, I need to get a bucket because I know this is the moment of the game where the bucket is needed. And I don't know anyone in that starting five who has that gene right now.
We keep trying to go to Chloe, but I think that's, again, putting her on the block and expecting her to be Aaliyah that ain't gonna work. And I think this is where we're at that weird part where, Dawn's methods are tried and true, but it's also like, this is a different year. This is a different team. We got to do something different. Yeah. Like we just do, because this to me was the wake up call loss. The other ones, it's like stuff happens, things and such, and blah, 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 blah. But this is the one where it's like, all right, if we keep doing the same thing, we going to get the same results. And I don't want the same results. I am a fan of winning. I am a fan of being successful. I'm a fan of buying championship t-shirts.
Captain Speed home field.
Talk to us. Get your promo code. They've got our championship merch. Let's relive the glory days. I'm in talks for the What If 2020. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about it later. But yeah, it's if we, because to me, we left the ring on the table. COVID, as I said, took that year from us. That was going to be ours. We can just stamp it right there. 2023 is the one where it's like that would have put us in like rarefied air. We go 3 straight with two undefeated seasons, because we were undefeated up until that point too.
Correct.
So that's a true dynasty. 3 straight, 5 overall. With whatever happens, I don't care what happens this year. We already we're like on the cusp of that GOAT tier. To me, it's like you got to keep going. It's like what I said with Nafisa. Like, you got to have some sustained excellence, and in order for it to be a true, stamp dynasty like that, I need at least one more of them, 2 more of them things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want with Tennessee, I want to knock Tennessee off their block. They got 8, so we got to do something to get there, and that starts to me now. Yeah.
Well, and on top of that too, like I said, the critiques are small, and the critiques are margin discussions. But I mean, this is the type of way we've been talking about UConn since Stewie left, right? 19.
Hey, look, I've been packing Moki up. I've been packing Gino up. That's why I didn't want to say what I said in the chat on air. Y'all, that's y'all's job. Pack my team up. I'm not gonna do it for you. I'm not gonna help you out. So it's if there's critiques to be made, I'm not doing it.
Well, let's talk a little bit, or try our best to talk about UConn from a success standpoint. Because boy, I joked about it in our paid subscriber chat on Substack, which you can do. We'll put the link in for you to subscribe to.
And matter of fact, you subscribe to that chat. I'll tell you what I said.
There we go.
Subscribe to the chat so you can see what I said.
But I'll tell you this: Pat Summitt must have visited Gino like the ghost of Christmas past after the loss to Tennessee, and was like, "You're gonna go out like this? Really? This is what you're going to do?" And
why would she link up against us though? What you say? Pat would have loved on.
That's always been the thing, man. I'm telling you. Even in our
Pat would have Dawn.
Well, I'll tell you this, Gino, what is so impressive to me is for the first time, as noted in the chat here, this is the first time in what feels like 5 years UConn's been legitimately healthy. I mean, whether it's been Paige or Azzi, Ducharme is hurt, but they've lost Biggs, KK Arnold last year. They have just been decimated by injuries at this point for what feels like years. And now we finally get to see what UConn looks like when they are fully healthy. And
add to that, because 4 years, it has been either injuries, Caitlin Clark, or South Carolina. So they don't have to worry about Caitlin this year. They're finally healthy. So this was the last Infinity Stone. Granted, championships are not won in February, but this was a big one just from a program morale standpoint. Because again, this has been a foible in your story for a couple years now, the Blue Bloods versus the New Bloods. I said that in the hater guide. This is the new standard right now. So in order to get back to your prominence, it goes through us.
Yep. For your money, because I've been thinking about this since that game ended. Is this the first time in 5-6 years that you've actually believed in the capability of UConn to win a national title?
I feel like I kind of started believing after the Minnesota Lynx won a championship, because I'm my teams are typically linked. So it's not really like a UConn thing. It's more of like a vibe and a narrative thing. And where I was like, oh no, my Aces didn't win. I don't know what, I don't think my Gamecocks are going to win. But also, what's the worst possible outcome since this worst possible outcome happened? And yeah, so that's when my brain started clicking. So it wasn't really like, oh, on paper, UConn X's and O's. It was just like, oh no, the vibes are off already. There's been a shift in the portal. But like, no, looking at them on paper, it's like this looked like a different team than I've been slandering all season. And like, just to be clear, I don't regret anything I said because at the time I said them, I meant it and I was right. And UConn fans was mad at Gino too. So today was the day where he was like, the slander stops. Shawnee, I'm tired of you. You shut your mouth and you do it right now. And I'm still not going to because you got to do it again in March, old man. But like, this is a good start.
I want Gino to send us a bottle of wine if they end up winning. Just a big old thank you.
I want Gino on. I want Gino on, and so I can say like, "Hey, take your victory lap, big dog."
I mean, look, TikTok on that. But my thing with Gino is that I feel like even last year I didn't buy it. And like I know that that's kind of shitty to say, but like I didn't buy the idea of UConn as a national title contender. Like when they first set the bracket, I was like, okay, Juju's gonna win. You know, USC is gonna win that game, and we're gonna have this like Juju coronation by the time she gets to the Final Four, and then you know she gets clamped by Nika Mule of all people, and UConn ends up back in the Final Four, and as that's happening, I'm like, and even when they're playing Iowa, I'm like, like really? Like show up in the title game? Like really? And I don't know. This was the first season in what feels like a while, really since 19, I think, that I'm looking at UConn and I'm like, yeah, they got the roster to win a national championship this year. And I think a lot of that has to do with Sarah Strong. You know, Paige and Azzi is a great story on its face, right? To come back from injuries, the way they've been playing off each other, Azzi's ability to shoot, and to see the fact that Azzi, through all of these injuries, has not lost the step and also has had the ability to ball well. That's a great story in itself. I think Paige, you know, she's gone through a lot of narrative shit this year, just in terms of where she's at, where she could
and
be.
I don't apologize for it.
No, and look, heavy is the head. Like, you're generational. Heavy is the head that is bestowed upon those that we deem generational. But Sarah Strong feels like the difference maker here. Like, if you don't have Sarah Strong, I think I go back to that default of your ceiling being that place. With her there now, I mean, I buy it. Like, I buy them as a team that if you were to tell me, and ESPN bet has it now, that UConn is the odds favorite to win the national championship. I don't know if I buy that, but like, I think they, for my money, them, UCLA, Notre Dame, and I'm still putting South Carolina in there because one bad loss does not mean I write you off. I think those four are my like clear national championship contenders, and then I'd probably put LSU and USC in like a tier 1.5 of like, if they won, would I be surprised? No, but would I be surprised if they like, if I woke up in April and it's like they're national champions, I'd be like, okay, you know. But Sarah Strong, like, lock up. Did Sarah Strong lock up National Freshman of the Year today?
Yeah, I mean, she been had it. Just off the strength of, like, she's been the best player on that team for a minute now. Like, Paige was the most impactful today, I think, just off the strength of, like, being aggressive. But, like, also piggybacking off of it, I think this is the first year that UConn hasn't really been depressed because those injuries started to wear on Gino mentally to where he's, like, doom and gloom in the press conference. And I, of all people, had to be the one to tweet, like, yo, you still got, like, 8 All-Americans on your bench, big dog. Like, make it shake. I watched... Yeah, like, hey, bro, do you need a hug? Because I get it, but, like, I watched Muffet take a team with, like, 6 combined ACLs to a national championship. Like, it sucks, and I'm not saying, like, it wasn't hard and it wouldn't wear on anybody mentally, but it was still just like, okay, where do we go from here? And then they kind of was like, oh yeah, we're still UConn. Like, we can do this. We can come together and still be better than a lot of teams. And I think today is one of those games where it's like, one, they're healthy, and two, their mentality is like, we're not scared. We're UConn. And I think that's a big thing when you play South Carolina. You have to be like, I'm not scared of y'all.
Yeah, you got to believe.
Yeah. And I think it's hilarious that that's where we are in today's society, that UConn has, I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. But
underdog Gino Oriema.
They're lifting him up. It's like Rudy out there.
Gino wants to be the underdog, so this is probably great. He hasn't felt this way since like kid play, bro. Like, this has got to be amazing for him. I
Neo, hold on a second. Put some respect on whose name? Who am I disrespecting? Because I didn't even do anything. Is it Moki? Because I'm not like.
Well, that's coming. That's coming in a sec. I will end with this on this UConn South Carolina bit. I think this is great for the rivalry. Because rivalries, like we talked about this with South Carolina LSU, right? Like with Dawn and Kim. Like, can you call that a rivalry right now? I don't think you can, because Kim's got to win one for this to be considered a back and forth. It's been a while since UConn has won one of these. And in order for us to maintain a healthy rivalry for the good of the sport, and the fact that Dawn and Gino deserve a lot of credit for being willing to schedule each other in the middle of fucking February and do this game. Like, there's a lot of coaches that would duck that and say, absolutely not. This is the middle of conference play. Our RPI and our net and our quad wins are already fine. We don't need to do it. Like, forget it. These two have an understanding that is kind of in the old school, like 70s coaches method of like Pat Summitt and Andy Landers and Van Chancellor and all of those OG SEC programs, where you know that you are selling the sport when you do these games. And Dawn and Gino understand that. And Dawn and Gino hold that in high regard and have a respect for basketball in the full scope. And that is something that I think is great that they both do, and they both deserve a lot of credit for it. But you need to have these go back and forth in order for that to matter. And so for me, this was, I think, one of the better things. And so I'm huge on that. Shawnee, before I let you go here, because we brought you on solely for the South Carolina UConn component.
We gotta get back to work, folks.
Whether it be a Cleveland perspective 16th WNBA franchise or an LSU Texas matchup.
The LSU Texas matchup, that's an interesting one. Like I said on the last time I was on here, I said that's going to tell me all I need to know. I feel like it told me nothing I need to know, so I lied. I lied. I still feel like the two of them, like, I still don't know what to make of LSU. Like, I don't want to believe in them because I'm mad at Moki. Because, like, again, to your point, Gino and Don respecting the game and scheduling each other, Moki's pissing me off. Stop doing this. Like, stop running from the grind, because we should have LSU UConn middle of the season or in non-con. Like, that should be a matchup. So the two of them, LSU, I'm starting to believe, like, okay, all right, because Texas is a good team. So if LSU is able to get it done, okay. I still don't see them as a threat to South Carolina. I'm not sure. Like, maybe they needed to lose and like see somebody else beat us and see someone else beat us to be like, oh, all we have to do is believe or something. I don't know. But they'll probably come back different. So I'm still kind of on the fence about them, because I think the SEC is still going through us. So this is just, to me, who's going to threaten to dethrone us. Mm-hmm. And so I'm still on the fence. I lied about that. Cleveland, I said sexy cities only, and nobody's listening. And that's pissing me off. It's just pissing me off. Oops.
Cleveland's hard. I think we might have finally lost Shawnee. The transmission may have cut. It 100% just cut. All right. I was told that Shawnee's phone was about to die, so this makes a ton of sense. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit, folks, of LSU and Texas here, because this makes some stuff really weird. First and foremost, I'll throw the SEC schedule or the SEC standings up here for a minute so people can actually notice this component. This is really wild because LSU and South Carolina, they had the tiebreakers on each other. So South Carolina and LSU played once this season. So what that meant is that if LSU were to win this game and the two teams would win out, South Carolina would win in a tiebreaker for the 1 seed and for the regular season championship off the strength of the fact that each of these teams met once and they beat them once. Texas and South Carolina split this year. So now you're not talking about the actual losses. The SEC rules here state that it's head-to-heads, and if you can't get to head-to-heads, you get combined win percentage of your opponents. And if you can't get that, it's a legit coin flip from Greg Sankey to decide who wins the conference. So we might end up in a really weird spot here with Texas and South Carolina where there might be a co-champion in the SEC this year. When we actually take a look at the box score of this one, I mean, guys, this is as weird a box score as you're going to get. And it's mostly because of this right here. We have said it. Tyler has said it. We noticed it after the South Carolina-Texas game that this group goes as Madison Booker goes. And the fact that Texas was able to win on a 3 of 17 shooting night from Madison Booker is honestly bizarre. And a 2 of 7 shooting night from Kyla Oldacre too, because you would expect at least one of those players to be able to kind of pace you if you can't. And then you end up getting to the line, you go 10 of 10 from the line. It's really amazing stuff here for Texas to be able to win this game. And then you go up and look at LSU, and just honestly a bad shooting night for a lot of them. I mean, this is the Michaela Williams experiment is great when it goes well, and when it doesn't, this is what you get. And, you know, the girl is a high volume scorer in a lot of ways. I think she personally is one of the more exciting players to kind of piggyback on what Shawnee and I had said, right? Like when it comes to a Malaysia Fulwiley, for instance, in South Carolina, Michaela Williams is one of those players, and there's like 4 of them on this LSU roster that know when you need a big bucket. And down 4 in the fourth quarter, Michaela Williams gets you that 3-point play on the mid-range step back that ends up going and getting the foul. But when you're 1 for 7 from the line, like that is what creates the problems. A 15-20 game from Anissa Morrow is absolutely friggin' preposterous. It has, and I don't want people to think I'm being crazy here. But at the end of the day, I have a very weird feeling that there's an element of Anissa Morrow that's almost Angel Reese-like, where the offensive skill is a little bit on a higher end, but what you are getting out of her is the amount of rebounds and effort and ability on the boards that keeps you in games. And that type of intangible is the stuff that Reese got drafted into Chicago for. It's what's kept her in the league. It's what's kept her in these conversations. And once the offensive game kind of catches up to where her effort on the boards is, the discussion is, you know, Angel Reese is going to be that kind of player in the W. Anissa Morrow kind of feels like a higher end version of that already, where I can see a better offensive bag. I can see a little bit more mid-range. There is at least a desire to shoot 1 or 2 threes, but the effort on the boards, the ability to get rebounds, to get, 16 on the defensive end, 4 on the offensive, and 20 in total. That's half of your team's rebounds, man. I mean, that in itself is astounding. I I kind of like Shawnee said, man, I don't know what the hell to make of this LSU team at all. They are good, but not. They just seem to lack that top end player, but they have it on their roster, like in a couple of different ways. So they dropped down to 2 losses. The way the schedules look here, it's probably over for them as far as a regular season title is concerned. This is now between Texas and South Carolina, 12-1 and 11-1. Kentucky has been exposed. They're good. They're not great. And then everything else down here, Tennessee is the one to watch. Tennessee's been the one to watch, and they are the exact team. To answer this question, I feel like what they lack this year is a dominant big to save them in those moments. Even when it was somebody like LaDasia Williams, right? Like there was a big body that could at least get you out of problems the way a Kara Oldacre could today for Texas. And even if, Oldacre goes 2 of 7, end of the third quarter and she gets that board and that putback, like that's the type of stuff you need. I don't know if Samaya Smith is that player for them yet, or is that player at all. Jersey Wolfenbarger is 6'5", but she's a 6'5" swing player. She's like a 3-point shooting wing, essentially. So that to me is kind of what this game is. I absolutely just massive win for Texas, massive win for Vic. He kept his jacket on for a good chunk of this game and didn't sweat through the white shirt. So I give it to Vic. I give it to Texas. And for those of you that do not know the name, learn it now. Jordan Lee, pride of Sacramento, Stockton area specifically, went to St. Mary's, the same school as Chelsea Gray. Couple of big shots there down the stretch. Fantastic defender. This girl is going to be a pro. You are not seeing it yet, but you will in due time. Trust me when I say Jordan Lee is going to be the next one up. The last thing that I want to touch on before we go here is what we had talked about with Shawnee briefly, a Sports Business Journal article that shook me to my very core. Cleveland, guys. Yeah, Cleveland. Looking to be 90% of the way there, the next WNBA franchise. Within this SBJ article, it said that the league is going to advance to 18. They had planned to stop at 16 at first, but the money has been so good that they're going to move into 18, which I don't really see a major problem with. Cleveland, not the sexiest city, but this number right here, that is a sexy number. $250 million for the next WNBA franchise. And mind you, folks, $50 million was the buy-in for Golden State. So you have 5x the investment over 3 teams. And I don't necessarily think LeBron has any ties to this, but I do think it is very important to note, and we're going to note it in 5 Out today, is the idea that these are NBA owners, and so the financials have already been vetted by the league. So when you look at the WNBA, it's a lot of due diligence, a lot of legal background checks to go to people and be like, all right, does Raj Bathal have the money, right? Like, does Naveen Diamond in Denver, who is leading the bid here in my city, does he have the money to do this? Like, there's all sorts of stuff they have to go through. NBA owners have already done it to a degree, which is why when you see Philadelphia and Houston, for instance, those 2 teams seem very noteworthy in that Houston is a bid from Tillman Fertitta, who owns the Rockets. Philadelphia is a bid from Josh Harris, who owns the Sixers and the Commanders in the NFL. Nashville has the money. Make no mistake, Nashville has a shitload of money. Detroit also has NBA ownership. The Gore family is with them on that. So that's another family that is going to, come down the pipe here and have their financials, their bona fides have been checked out by the league itself. But what I am kind of interested in is the fact that it doesn't really feel like Cleveland is the city you expected, but if everyone is throwing $250 million into getting expansion bids, I think that's kind of the major component here, especially when you look at this quote within the story here, that the bids are going from 200 to 250. And what that does is it accomplishes two things for you. A, it allows you to reinvest in the league because this money gets doled back out to the franchises. So not only do you have more TV money coming in through this newest deal, you also are kind of pyramid scheming your way into a bunch of money for the league itself. And to that point, this is good because this is leverage for the players themselves now. Because now the PA can go to the WNBA and saying, 3 more teams and $750 million, there's a rev share option here that can work for all of us, because whatever the current deal is now that, we're getting, the next deal that comes after that is also going to be orders of magnitude larger. And, anybody that's ever bought a car or negotiated a contract that's in this chat, that's watching this right now, like, this. The car immediately depreciates the second you drive it off the lot. The minute you are underpaid when you sign a contract is the minute after you sign it. And that's kind of, I think, what the PA is going to be looking at here is this, whatever we're going to get now is going to age well. So we want more up front because we know how much more money we're going to get on the back end. But Cleveland, it looks like it might be. So hope everyone loves summers on the riverfront. The lakefront. The nice thing about Cleveland in the summer, it's not summertime, Shy. We know this. It's not Chicago in the summertime. But at the very least, because of the way the WNBA season is, Cleveland in the summer in the Great Lakes, you could make an argument. The same way you can make an argument that like Uncasville in the summer, like New London and that area, Norwich and Connecticut, like the Connecticut coast in the summer is like kind of nice for a certain type of person. I feel like you could make a similar argument for Cleveland here. Not a sexy city, but if you make like $500,000 a year and you want to have like a nice lakefront property in the summer, I don't know. I feel like you can do that. So looks like we're going to 18, but that's good with everybody. That's good for everyone. That's good for the league. That's good for all of our interest in it, because what that means is more roster spots, more of our favorite college players and our favorite pro players have places to be. It also helps, basketball at the youth level. It keeps growing in the grassroots level. And it just makes more shit interesting. So I'm excited for it. I wish it wasn't Cleveland, but whatever. Cleveland might have some good stuff to it. I went in the summer once with my dad. We went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it was like 75 and sunny. It was nice. It was nice. I'm not going to go to Cleveland on vacation, but I'll drive through it. When I'm doing a cross-country trip and, see Tom Petty's guitar, see Prince's guitar, maybe see a WNBA game in the future. That is the hope. So, folks, that's all we got, man. 5 Out is coming tomorrow for those of you that are primarily YouTube folks. Want to put you on to our actual outlet page on Substack called No Cap Space WBB. It is, your traditional Substack newsletter type of situation. All you got to do, put in your email for free. You get a mess of content that gets into your inboxes at all times. And then we also have a paid subscription tier, which gives you even more access, even more content, early access to guest interviews and all of these amazing things. There's also a lot more collaborations and things coming down the pipe as well. So go to nocapspacewbb.com. Sub for free, sub paid, anything works. We just love having you along with the journey. Tell your friends too. We do a referral program. We also do a 7-day free trial. So if you want to hang out and continue to talk ball and be a part of it all, well, that's what we're here for, man. We're here for the ball knower. For those that know ball, to teach you ball, and for you to know ball alongside us. And I am sure Shawnee will be back a little bit later this week. We have Ball Up Top, a women's basketball podcast that comes out on Tuesday mornings, and then we break it up video by video for you to kind of have and see throughout the week in little snippets and installments. And of course, we're going to have so much more this week. I mean, everything that we have run and put together, it's been great. Our crew's been great. All of you guys that have been day ones have been great. So keep hanging with us, man. Building out a pretty cool women's basketball community. I know it can get a little hectic on the social sometimes, so we try and keep it a place where folks can know ball and, of course, hate ethically, as our fearless, ethical, hating leader, Shawnee, is wont to do. That's all, folks. We'll see you later. We'll see you soon. Got some good games coming up tonight, too. UCLA, Michigan State, and then we got the watch guide coming out this week as well. Duke and Notre Dame coming out on Monday. That game ahead of it, we have a big interview with Sonia Citron from Notre Dame. You're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be right here on YouTube. So smash that subscribe button, get it in your inbox, and see how one of the best players in the country and one of the lottery picks in this 2025 WNBA draft has been enjoying this year for what might be the number one team in the country come the start of next week. That's all we got on No Cap Space. I'm Andrew Hobner, and we will see you all just a little bit later.